Welcome to Foodie Down Bronx. Stay connected to us on Instagram at BronxNetTV and Foodie Down Bronx, and make sure to follow me at The Hungry Dominican. On today's show, we'll sit with the producers behind Racist Sandwich, a podcast exploring race, gender, and class in the food industry. And we'll also broach a few other topics such as personal motivations, goals, and of course, social media. But before we meet our guest, let's get into this week's Chew News. Mirada Restaurant is a family-owned Oaxacan restaurant in the South Bronx with a goal to preserve and share indigenous Mexican cuisine. The Saavedra family has been transparent about being an undocumented family and have made their business a safe space for the immigrant community through culture, arts, and initiatives while actively participating in social justice causes. Marco Saavedra of La Morada has been fighting to get asylum in the U.S. He recently had an asylum hearing, press conference, and a march at Federal Plaza. We were there to capture it. Let's check it out.
Marco Saavedra, an immigrant rights activist, recently had an asylum hearing at 26 Federal Plaza. As a prominent advocate for human rights, Saavedra is requesting asylum because he fears that he will face persecution if he's forced to return to Mexico.
In the last year, 2019, 19 activists have been killed in Mexico, and 10 of them were from my home state of Oaxaca. And we see 103 deaths every day in Mexico because of the drugs on war and the impunity that the cartels enjoy in Mexico. So this continues in my home country.
If Marco is sent back to Mexico, he will be persecuted. He will be tortured and possibly killed because of his political opinions defending immigrant rights in Mexico. It's a dangerous thing in Mexico, and there's no rule of law, and he will have no protection from the state of Mexico.
Marco has been living in the United States for 26 years. He and his family have been transparent about being undocumented and have established themselves as a staple in the South Bronx with their Oaxacan restaurant, La Morada. The restaurant was closed the day of Marco's hearing as the family stood by him surrounded by supporters.
I know this is my home, this is my family, this is my community, and we're here to put up a big fight. Regardless of what happens, we're going to stay together as a family. So if you want the best mole, to stick around, the best Oaxacan food, the best tacos, according to Thrillist and Michelin, and all that good stuff, yes, served in the South Bronx, then let's make sure to support Marco's.
We are indigenous, and this is our land. We are Americans, and Marco deserves to be here. This is his home. And please tell everyone out there, we need support. And it's also for all these politicians that they knock on those doors when they need volunteers, when they need organizers. We there. And I don't see anyone here today supporting Marco. I don't see anyone from the city council. I don't see anyone that have been in the Morada eating the delicious food in here. I only see activists and religious leaders.
Marco and supporters marched in solidarity to his hearing at 26 Federal Plaza. The results of his asylum status are yet to be decided. La Morada posted this message to their social media, stating that attorneys must submit final statements. They expect to hear a verdict by January 2020. Marco and family request the continued support of the community and elected officials at this time.
We also have to hold our own elected officials accountable because they can't just cater to the Latino vote every 4 years and then not follow up.
Reporting for BronxNet, Sanji Lopez.
In other news, Everybody Eats key ingredients for a successful small business was a conversation hosted by the creative collective and NycFoodMuse, Rosanna and Anil. Rosanna, of course, was a guest here on Foodie Down Bronx several episodes ago and was my co-host for the Foodie Down Bronx panel. At this event, 5 female food entrepreneurs shared what it takes to launch and maintain a small business. Participants were able to ask questions and seek advice from the panelists. Let's check out this clip.
I think a lot of times people think of a restaurant and they primarily think of spending money on developing the menu and finding your suppliers and all that stuff. But while we were still figuring all that stuff out, at least initially, just having a beautiful space is like amazing marketing on a street level. People walking in like, hey, what is that? Oh, that place looks so cute. It should be in Soho. And like, nah, man, it's here. It's in Brooklyn.
Creating the name is important because that's an initial incentive for anyone to go into your Instagram, right? So for us, Next Stop Vegan was created from the idea of, being a Bronx native and taking the train, and it's like every stop is like the next stop towards veganism. So it's like Next Stop stop, Border Road, next stop. So the concept behind my name has created a story that has allowed my brand to grow on its own.
Honestly, what I did to learn the coffee business is I went to coffee shops. I sat down at Starbucks and I was watching how they work. I would go and ask questions like, what machine is this? What does this do? I would go to cafes. So I would say go and mimic and see the business that you want to get into. If you have to go and get a job at Starbucks, get a job just in your prospective field.
Special shout out goes to Rosanna for once again being an incredible host and putting together an amazing panel of women who doled out some really informative advice for anyone looking to get into the food industry. And a very special thank you to Chef Lioness, who was gracious enough to give the audience in attendance some incredible empanadas. Look for Rosanna on Instagram at NycFoodMuse and Chef Lioness at Lioness Cuisine. Shifting gears now, quite literally, Cranksgiving is a food drive on two wheels held in New York City since 1999 with over 80 locations around the globe. Here in the Bronx, Cranksgiving kicked off with the help of Bronx-based organizations and businesses to benefit Bronx residents. The cyclists went on a scavenger hunt and biked through parts of the Bronx, purchasing canned goods and produce to donate to those in need this season. The cyclists returned to the Point CDC, where they gathered all of their donations. Afterwards, participants celebrated at Millie's Corner Restaurant and Bar. Local Bronx brands and restaurants contributed prizes for the participants to enjoy, such as Bronx brand merch, Taste of the Bronx boxes, and Seis Vecinos dinners. All items collected at Bronx Cranksgiving will be donated to Sienna House, a small women's-only shelter in the Highbridge section of the Bronx. And before we wrap things up, I want to thank Tim Vetter of the Voyages of Tim Vetter, a great podcast that's available anywhere podcasts are found. Tim reached out to me and asked me to be on his show and talk a little bit about the food in the Bronx, myself, and of course, this show that you're watching right now. We had a great conversation, and Tim was a great and gracious host. So make sure to check out the latest episode of the Voyages of Tim Vetter. Thank you, Tim. All right, guys, that is this week's Chew News, giving you a little food for thought. Foodie Down Bronx, we'll be right back.